So now we have a system to really get to the funny. We're going to use the joke funnel. And when we write it, we'll get better and better at it with experience. There's ways to shortcut that process, and this is the key ingredient behind it. Just use that joke funnel on all your stories. Now we have to start thinking about delivery. How you present information has a big impact. Anyone can look cool, but like this little fella, awesome takes practice, and he's definitely awesome. Not the world's funniest photo, but enough to get a little kind of a reaction out of people, or a smirk, or to engage, or to think twice about it. I'm not talking about widgets. It's not a chart with no interesting information. Just pick something that grabs people's attention a little bit. We want to set about delivering our information in a way it's most likely to engage people. There's a number of things we can do from the world of stand-up comedy to do that. A number of things that will take pressure off you as a presenter and that you can practice and replicate and get better at very, very quickly. Let's look at a number of ways we can do that. The first one is the memory palace. Of everything I learned in the years experiments I did with comedy, and of all the people I talked to, this is the single biggest item that made a difference in my life as someone who's afraid of public speaking. Not as much anymore, but it's still a fear. It never fully goes away, but knowing it's manageable, this was a huge item in that. One of the biggest fears for people approaching public speaking is that they will go blank on stage. If you're worried about going blank on stage, it's very hard to focus on other items if you have nothing to say. How you say it becomes unimportant. So you end up focusing on memorizing and looking at a list 2 minutes before you go on stage. Oh, bullet points, notes all over the place. Sometimes you bring those notes on stage and read it like a War and Peace version of the book. I've certainly done that in the past. This is the most effective thing I learned to go around it. The memory palace is a way of you creating memories in your mind and storing them in a location. Our minds are amazingly good at remembering locations as opposed to information. If I ask you right now, picture in your mind your favorite restaurant. Picture it like you're sitting there and you're ordering your favorite dish. What does the restaurant look like? Where's the bathroom? When you walk in the door, the person who greets you, are they on the right or the left? Is there a bar? How many tables loosely are around you? Even with just an example like that, you start to form an image in your mind. It's crazy how clear it becomes. You can even think of the worst restaurant you've been to, and you'll probably be able to remember something about the layout. We're going to use something much stronger than that. We're going to take locations that we're extremely familiar with. So to start with, take your house, take your apartment, take the house you grew up in, or take the place you work. And what we're going to do within that is we're going to create little memories and little stories in each individual room. So we literally, my talk becomes, I start off by writing it down as bullet points, but then I create a story for every one of those points. So if I need to talk about Mexico, when I open the front door of my house, in my mind, I've created an image of a Mexican guy. Comes out wearing a sombrero, he's got a Mexican soccer jersey, and I need to talk about a key number within that talk, 37. 37% is the number I need to remember. This guy that greets me at my front door, he has the number 37 written on him, and he has a bottle of tequila in his hand, and he's riding a donkey. I don't know why he's riding a donkey. The more crazy you make up this story, the more likely you are to remember it. It became notable recently with the book by Joshua Foer and the accompanying TED Talk called Moonwalking with Einstein, where Joshua went from having an extremely ordinary memory and being a journalist to covering the US Memory Championships, training for 1 year, and coming back and winning. And he also, along the way, became the 11th best mind at memorizing things in the world. How was he doing it? He was using the memory palace. It's the same thing as rapid language learning experts tend to use. They use the memory palace. If you speak Spanish or you don't, the word in Spanish for to fit is caber. Caber is the verb for something being able to fit. If I create a story around that verb and that word, I'm much more likely to remember it. So if I break it up and I picture a taxi cab driver in as many details as possible, and I picture a big grizzly bear, this bear is trying to get in the window, and the taxi driver is like, he has a foreign accent. I don't know where he's from, Russia somewhere. He's like, get out of my taxi bear, you not fit. Sounds totally crazy. But now if you're trying to recall the word, you have a story, and you're like, what's the word for to fit? It's trying to stick that animal in the taxi cab. It was trying to stick the bear in the taxi cab, caber. And now your mind logically pulls back. It has a story to connect to instead of just a word that you try to memorize. When these guys are rapidly studying languages, that's exactly what they do. They create a story for every word so they can associate it with something. Check yourself tomorrow if you remembered a word for to fit in Spanish. Fitting a bear in a taxi cab. Caber. You probably will. You're welcome. I didn't even advertise the fact that this was a language learning course. The memory palace is huge. I'm going to give you an example of a story I had. Basically, this is a sequential drawing. This is all I will have in my back pocket before I go on stage. So as you see, I walk in here at the start of the story in the door, and all I've written on this piece of paper is key words. These are all elements of the story that I need to remember. As I walk through, I'm seeing certain images. So this is a story that I'm going to show you just after, and you'll see how I told it and how I broke it down. So at the start of the story, I jump, then I see I injure my knee, I have a missing part of it, I need to talk about a certain town. This is a couch, I've got 3 elements sitting on the couch. In my mind, when I'm giving the talk or presentation, I'm literally walking around my house. When I come in the door, I start. When I exit the door, I finish. When you get really good at using this technique, you're going to be able to know the associated times of being in each room. So as it often happens with presenters, just before you're about to go on stage, they say, "Oh, Jim, you know, we had you down for 22 minutes. We need you to do 10. Everybody's gone over. I'm really sorry." Nothing you can do. That is a moment of panic for even the best presenters. But guys who use the memory palace know the associated times in each room. So I know that if I'm going past the bathroom here, that if I open the door to the bathroom and I start talking about it, I'm going to be in there for a minute. So if I want to pull elements from my story or my talk that aren't as important anymore, and this isn't just for stories, I use the exact same technique when I'm hosting a business conference, and so do a lot of really, really top speakers and performers. I'm able to pull items out of here sequentially by time. It makes sure that I follow the correct order as I'm walking around. I don't worry about mixing things up. Using this technique, I've never, ever, ever, ever gone blank on stage. And I hope you won't too, because it's really those big items that you want to take the worry away from it. If you're not sitting backstage before you go on memorizing your lines, you're able to watch the 3 or 4 talks before you. If you do that, you're very much in the moment with the audience. You're able to see things that they've referenced and build on their jokes. If they said something funny, you can call back to it and acknowledge it was funny. If they said something you were planning on putting in your talk, then you're able to take that out. It shows that you're in the moment with the audience. I guarantee you'll remember a time when you watched a speaker talking and he referenced something that the other speakers had already talked about, and you were like, how did you not know? You've been here all day. He was probably backstage somewhere memorizing his lines. Using this relaxes you a lot more. So create a little story for every element of your talk and do it in as much crazy detail as possible. Joshua 4 in his book, which I definitely recommend you check out, is known to say the crazy things he had his mother do in his memory palace. He could never tell anybody. The more elaborate the story you have, the easier it is to recall and remember it. So walk around, use your memory palace, and just to give you some confidence when you're speaking, draw it out like that, put it in your back pocket, put it in a place where people won't see it, just to have it there. You never want to take it out. Don't show anybody ever visible notes on stage. It shows them you're not ready or fully prepared. You want to come out and be prepared to have nothing but a clicker in your hands or the microphone. You don't want to be like me with the War and Peace notes. Using the memory palace will take that fear away.